Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with part one of my weekly garden tour that is really just the last days of July going into August. I'm headed out of town for an awesome conference in Asheville, the Perennial Plant Association, and I'm just so excited that the garden looks so much better than it did a month ago, and that's of course because of consistent rain. But without further ado, let me turn this camera around so that you can get an up-close view of all the incredible plants that are growing here, including this really dynamic burgundy-leafed castor bean. So I don't even think that I've really talked about castor beans this year. And I sort of take them for granted because they self-sow. I don't plant these. I haven't planted castor bean in probably 10 years. They're abundant self-seeders. I edit them. We've got 4 pretty good sized specimens now coming along, and I love this huge leaf. I mean, look at how big that leaf is compared to my hand. And they're poisonous to animals, so the deer leave them alone, the voles don't eat them. And I like that burgundy coloration in here, along with this hibiscus acetofolius, and I think that's its name. And then of course, the white cleome, and the pink gomphrena, and of course the burgundy coleus. This bed has really come along great. I'm thrilled to see how well the cotton is doing. You see, this is a burgundy leaf cotton. In more sun, it's more burgundy. It's just that the castor beans are kind of giving it some shade. But I've got cotton bolls started, which means I'll get seed for next year, but I'll also get cotton, which I like to use as decorations for the holidays. It's a really cool plant, easy to grow from seed. You don't need a lot, but it really does kind of give you a sense of place. I live in an area where cotton is one of the staple agricultural crops. And I really appreciate that the Salvia coccinea is self-sown. I planted Salvia coccinea here, I think probably in 2020, and I love that it just kind of self-sows and is filling in the gaps where I didn't quite plant the white vinca dense enough out here in the front. The white zinnia, or the white vinca, is doing what I wanted it to do, that half, where it's exactly filled in, a nice border. The goal with this is to make it kind of look like the railing and mimic the white elements of the front porch. And I really like this palette of burgundy and white. And every year is different. Even if I tried to recreate this, I would fail. So I'm just really enjoying it for what it is right now. And again, I'm so relieved that we're getting rain because everything looks so much better. Well, hopefully you watched the video that we posted showing the tear out, but I'm so happy that I can finally tell you we did it. We got something accomplished. We got all those compacta hollies taken out. Some were rotten, they were really easy to pull. Others we just cut down and we painted with stump killer. That way they'll just rot in place. Next step will be to just mulch the bed. We're not gonna plant anything. I really like this bed being more open. I mean, my inclination is like, I wanna go on Facebook Marketplace and buy furniture. I know that's not necessary because no one sits, but it's still a nice thought. And I did want to show you, I cut one eucomis back and I left one. And I really just wanted to show the difference. That one that I cut back should flush out new growth. It'll be dark burgundy. So tune in to watch that. It's not really an experiment because I've done it so often, but wanted to just give you a side-by-side view of how you can treat eucomis at this time of year, the heavy cutback, and make it look more interesting in the autumn. Well, the butterflies have been super active. It's a little late now. I don't see as many flitting around, but of course this stand of bright eyes Phlox paniculata mixed with sweet summer hydrangea paniculata is a very popular destination in the garden. And everything along the north borders is looking good, much improved. Have not run sprinklers at all, which is amazing. It's like we were running sprinklers so much that you almost forgot what it was like to not have water running. I'm really happy to see that the lilacs don't look they were really struggling through the drought and the extreme heat, but they definitely look recovered. This one's looking good. I know I showed you Excel last week, but that's looking nice and lush and healthy. So pleased that this border has totally filled in. For years I struggled to get this to be ground plane coverage, and that was because there was a big Yoshino cryptomeria planted here, and we had that removed last year, and just a little bit of light made a big difference. Well, one thing I can say about the drought is that it made this Rudbeckia a lot less big. Last year, because we were wetter, this was like 10 foot tall and flopping all over the place. It didn't get so tall this year, and it's actually much more manageable like this. And you can see here is green spire hydrangea paniculata. Really my favorite to have fertile and infertile flowers all on the same panicle. And though the deer are perpetually eating all these echinacea, they're still doing well, and they've really filled in so well. These are all self-sown. And I had to stop and show you that my olive tree is doing quite well, and you can see it's got a lot of new growth on it. So that's pretty exciting. It's in a very protected space here. We're definitely haven't always been reliably hardy for olives, but we are warmer. So particularly in the winter, we've been very mild lately. And so it's gotten, you know, to be able to be pretty well established. So we come along here. I haven't done any weeding. This cherry always suckers at the base. I just need to come in and cut all that down. You can see the vitex, which I use as cutback shrubs, are starting to bloom, which is wonderful. They're not really in the right place, but you know, that's sometimes how it goes. And it's always just so cute to see the bees just kind of sleeping. I read something on Facebook, I'm not sure if it's true, that the bees who sleep in the flowers are old and they don't want to take up room in their hive. I don't know if that's actually accurate, but you know, it's a cute thought. Now I'm amazed, and I don't understand how the sweet potatoes in deep shade under the live oak are not getting eaten, knock on wood, and they're growing great and they look fantastic. This is dark shade, like this doesn't get any direct sunlight. And then you come out here in full sun where they get eaten every day. It's like the deer are too lazy to walk to the shady section. So the sweet potatoes are definitely planted and growing in here. They're just, and this happened last year. Last year I put some effort and actually sprayed for them and had the motion censored sprinkler set up. I've got that set up next door. So just not really going out of my way to try and make this planting work, but they are alive, you can see. I'm really happy to see zinnias are coming up. More cosmos are filling in. I really wanted this to be kind of a cosmo border. I don't think it's going to shape out to be that way, but that's okay. It'll give us an opportunity to get it planted earlier this year for winter. And, well, it'll make it look that much more awesome in the spring. And this shrub border, particularly from this side, is really so improved. Great, again, to see that Rudbeckia and more Phlox paniculata bright eyes. Let's see, the Lespedezas filling in, not looking like death. Everything just is so much better because it's rained. You know, there's just no substitution for rain. If you've been following along, you probably saw how sad this Conoi viburnum was, but you know, it's really isn't showing any signs of drought stress now. And I never got around to cutting this stand of phlox back, and you know, it's starting to recover. You see lots of new growth coming up at the base. So, you know, sometimes the perennials just sort of retreat to the ground and then they come back when the climate's a bit more amenable. Really happy to see these, quote, dwarf crepe myrtles doing very well. They're not very dwarf. I mean, they're smaller than trees, but they're not tight and organized, but I still like them when they bloom. I really like having the pycnanthemum mixed throughout here, along with the phlox, some hedychiums. You know, this is a border that I really don't touch. So kind of take the good with the bad. Happily, there's more good than bad that's showing right now. And of course, it would benefit from a little bit of hands-on. Maybe when I get home from PPA. And over in this shrub border, I see a swallowtail still in action. This is not Bright Eyes. This was a variety that I was trialing, and I totally don't remember its name. It's a little shorter and less aggressive, but equally pretty, and butterflies love it. The backyard has so many butterflies. I can't wait to share the backyard garden tour. But everything in here is doing really well, except for the baptisias that got completely devoured by that caterpillar. And I just need to come out with pruners and cut them down. Hopefully they'll come back next year. You can see the area where I was planning to make a walkway is filling in pretty well. No walkway to be had. Another big dead looking baptisia. I'm just hopeful that it will come back from its base. But I'm really happy to see the chrysanthemums doing so well. You know, I like to use hardy mums as a ground plane coverage plant, and they've really done well in this bed despite it being so shady. And you could see that the calicarpa are already starting to set fruit. This is Welch's Pink, which is always several weeks earlier than the straight species. Really beautiful. That'll color up sometime in August. But then you have a species like Calicarpa quantanensis, where it's only starting to flower now. So it's amazing when you get different species, how varied their bloom and fruiting times can be. You know, this border actually started off as a viburnum and Calicarpa species bed. So that's why I have so many different viburnums and so many different Calicarpa. This was the area where I would collect cuttings from when I was still working at Camellia Forest. Well, the big fantasy crepe myrtle bed, you can see the crepe myrtle is starting to girth up, and that's a fun time when the bark just like peels off, and it can be a little bit addicting. It's really satisfying just to rip it off. Doesn't hurt the plant at all. It's all gonna fall off and peel off on its own anyway. But yeah, I should not have started. Now I can't stop. This bed, you know, even with the rain, it's definitely things have perked up, but it's still a really dry bed. And I just wanted to show you how some of the mangave that I planted here, you know, they died to the ground in the winter, but they came back from the root, and they're actually starting to look like something. So I was a little poo-pooey about planting mangave in the ground, but I see this, and though I prefer them to be a single plant, kind of more mature looking, knowing that if they're going to be perennial and they come back as a clump, I actually like that quite a bit. So I'm going to give you an update on the mangaves. Not all of them that I planted in here have come back from the root, but I believe this is maybe Spotty Dotty or Kaleidoscope, I'm not sure. And so that one has. Well, everybody, I hope that you'll be inspired by part 1 of my weekly garden tour, and I look forward to sharing more updates with you tomorrow. As always, thanks so much for watching, and happy gardening.